You know that feeling when you open your email and there's another one of those notice of data breach messages? Yeah, you're not imagining it. 2026 has kicked off with an absolute storm of cyber attacks on a scale that's just wow. The numbers are genuinely staggering.
And we're not even talking about the whole year. We are just looking at the first 2 months, just January and February. A tiny little slice of the calendar, right? But what happened in that short period? Well, it was anything but small.
So, in just those first 2 months, we're talking about more than 150 million records being compromised in major public data breaches. And get this, that's not even the biggest, most insane number we're going to see today. Not even close.
Yeah, this isn't some slow drip. This is a full-on tidal wave of stolen data just crashing down on millions and millions of people. The sheer pace of these attacks is setting a pretty terrifying tone for the rest of the year. So let's dig into that. Just how big and how fast was this deluge of attacks? Honestly, the speed of it all is one of the most shocking parts of this whole story.
I mean, just look at this timeline. It's relentless. On January 22nd, boom, a huge dump of 72 million Under Armour accounts just surfaces online. Less than a week goes by, and Match Group, the people behind Tinder and Hinge, they report a breach of 10 million records. Then we roll into February, and the fallout from a breach at a company called Conduent just explodes, hitting over 25 million people. And then there's the big one. An unsecured database from a company called ID Merit is found just sitting there, having exposed a truly mind-boggling 3 billion records. We're talking about week after week of absolutely catastrophic data loss.
And this table really puts it all into perspective, doesn't it? That IDMER breach, 3 billion records. It just completely dwarfs everything else on the list. But here's the crazy part. Even if you just pretend that one didn't happen, you're still looking at tens of millions of records exposed from major players like Under Armour, this business provider called Conduent, Match Group, and the Dutch telecom company Odido. Any one of those on its own would be a huge story. Okay, so who is doing all this? And how are they pulling it off? To really get what's going on, we have to look at the playbook these attackers are using. And it usually comes down to two main strategies.
First up is the one you've definitely heard about, ransomware. It's digital extortion, plain and simple. So what happens is attackers break into a company's system, they lock up all their files, basically taking them hostage, and then they demand a huge payment to get them back. But here's the modern twist, the really nasty part. Now, they almost always steal a copy of all that data first. So even if the company has backups and can restore everything, the attackers can still say, pay us or we leak all your secrets online. It's a brutal 1-2 punch. And we're not talking about some kid in a basement here. These are organized criminal gangs with their own brand names. You've got groups like Keelan, who claimed they hit Romania's national oil pipeline operator. Then there's Shiny Hunters, a name that just keeps popping up, linked to the breaches at Panera, Figure Technology, and Match Group. These guys operate like actual businesses, They have targets, deadlines, and a really ruthless focus on making money.
Now, the second big tactic, this one is less about breaking complicated code and way more about breaking people's trust. It's called social engineering. This is the art of manipulation, right? It's about tricking an employee into giving up their password or clicking a bad link. It's not really a technical hack, it's a psychological one. And it works so well because it preys on our basic human nature. We want to be helpful. We trust people who sound like they're in charge. In this quote from the reports on the Match Group breach, it shows you exactly how this plays out in the real world. It describes a classic vishing campaign. That's voice phishing, phishing over the phone. So attackers will call up an employee, pretending to be from IT support. They'll walk them through a fix, guiding them to a fake login page to steal their password and username. They even trick them into handing over those multi-factor authentication codes that are supposed to keep you safe. It's so clever and just devastatingly effective.
So there you have it. Two really different but equally dangerous ways to get to the exact same disastrous result, a massive data breach. One is like using malware as a battering ram to bust down the door. The other is just charming an employee into handing over the keys to the front gate. And look, this isn't just happening to some faceless corporations or obscure tech companies you've never heard of. The victims here are brands you know, brands you use, maybe even brands you love. And that's what makes this threat so personal. Think about where you grab lunch, Panera, right? Well, they had the contact info for over 5 million customers leaked. Why? Because that gang, Shiny Hunters, tried to extort them and failed. Just imagine that. Your name, your email, your phone number, all out there for criminals to see, all because you bought a sandwich. Or what about the shoes you're wearing? Nike is looking into claims that an extortion gang stole 1.4 terabytes of their internal files.
We're talking about stuff like unreleased shoe designs, manufacturing secrets, absolutely priceless company information.
How about your digital wallet, PayPal? They had to disclose a breach of their working capital system that went unnoticed for a shocking 6 months. And in that time, attackers were actually able to make fake transactions and steal money directly from some people's accounts.
And we're back to workout gear again. Under Armour saw data from a whopping 72 million accounts, data that was stolen in an earlier breach, finally just dumped online for anyone to download. The list it just keeps going.
But here's a scary thought. What if a company can get breached without even being the one that was attacked? This brings us to a huge, complicated issue called the supply chain problem. It's a critical piece of this puzzle, where one company's security weakness can set off a whole domino effect of data loss for everyone else they work with.
The whole Volvo situation is a perfect example. So, step 1, the hackers didn't go after Volvo directly. Instead, they hit a business services company called Conduent. Now, Conduent handles data for tons of other big corporations. Step 2, once the hackers were inside Conduent's system, they could just browse around and steal files belonging to Conduent's clients. Which leads to step 3. A huge brand like Volvo has to come out and announce a data breach, with nearly 17,000 people's info exposed, all because a company they hired got hacked.
So, okay, billions of records are being stolen from brands we use every single day. Through direct attacks, through these crazy supply chain hacks, it all leads to the most important question, right? So what? What does this actually mean for us? What happens to our data, and what's the real risk? Look, the information getting stolen here isn't just random stuff. It's the very core of who you are online. We're talking full names, addresses, social security numbers, dates of birth. It's your phone number, your email. It can be your health insurance info, your driver's license number, your passport, even your bank account details. It is literally a complete, ready-to-use toolkit for stealing someone's identity. So what does a criminal do with a toolkit like that? Well, the consequences are serious, and they can hit you directly. For starters, they can create super targeted phishing scams that look incredibly real because they're using your actual personal details to trick you. They can commit straight-up identity theft, opening new credit cards or taking out loans in your name. They can try to take over your other online accounts, which is especially easy if you reuse passwords. They can even try something called a SIM swapping attack, where they actually convince your cell phone company to give them control of your phone number. Think about that. Then they can intercept all your two-factor authentication codes. And in the absolute worst cases, this stuff can lead to direct harassment or even personal extortion. Wow, the start of 2026 has been a really harsh wake-up call, hasn't it? Data breaches aren't some distant possibility anymore. They are a constant, everyday reality. And they're happening on a scale that is just unprecedented. So, in a world where our personal data is constantly being exposed, traded, and exploited, the question isn't just, what does privacy even mean anymore? The real question is, what are we going to do about it?